Good morning, everyone. Today we have what is our last new lesson for this mini unit that we're doing from chapter 11. We skipped a lot of the introductory stuff. It doesn't lend itself quite as well to being done online, and I want to make sure that you guys are getting the essential things before we move forward into next year. So what we're going to talk about is our final formula, and you'll probably want your formula sheet out so you can add the midpoint formula to it at the end of this lesson. And as usual, I will post this worksheet so that if you want to have this to work with as you go, that is totally fine. But like usual, that's not a requirement. Like I'm not going to collect these at the end of the year or something. That's just for your benefit. So if you want to ignore that and just do notes on your own or just watch the video, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's then jump into this. As you guys can see, we're starting with a little bit of review. Some of our algebra skills are coming back to the forefront. And when we are doing midpoints, we're going to be using two ideas that come from algebra. The first one is to do with mean or average. Don't forget that that's just what mean means. It means the average. And when we're trying to find the average of something, what you're trying to do is basically evenly distribute all of the terms that I give you. So if I'm looking at this first question, it asks me to find the average if I know that you got a 97 and a 77 on two tests. And we're assuming that these tests have the equal weight or points to them. Well, in order to do that, all I need to do is take 99 plus 77 to get my total number of points and divide that by 2 so I'd figure out how that splits to each test. So if I'm looking at that, I already have it up there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that 97 plus 77 to get my 174. And I'm going to divide that by 2 to find my final answer of 87. So you'd have an average of an 87. Now, remember that average can work with more than just two numbers. So I could say, well, now I've got another test, a third test, and I got 100% on that. So I could redo this whole thing and I could say, well, 99 plus 77 plus 100. Now, since I'm adding three things and I want to find the average or mean between these three things, I'm going to divide by 3 because I'm now splitting it into 3 sections. So I take my original 174, the 99 plus 77. I'd add 100 to it. Don't really need a calculator for this, but 274 divided by 3 would give me my new average of 92%, which is pretty stinking great. So notice, by the way, also how much that 100% can really help you out there. But we're not going to worry about that too much. What we're going to look at now is midpoint with a line segment. Midpoint with a line segment connecting two coordinate points, 16 and -2, can be solved just by looking at a number line. So if I have a number line here, and I know that 0 is about here, this is going to be -2, and over on this side, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And I'm going to keep it at this right now because I don't really need the other numbers. I know I'm going to be halfway in between. When you're trying to do this, what you're trying to do is find the exact distance between these two coordinates. Now keep in mind that since -2 is a negative, that there's a positive distance here of 2 units. And over here there's a positive distance of 16 units, meaning the total distance between these two things is 18. And that means that halfway between will just be 18 divided by 2. And that is 9. So I should be at 9 units away from both of these points. And that will give us 7 because -2 plus 9 is 7. And you could also double check this. Is this halfway, or is this the same distance on this side? Well, is that 9 away? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So each of these are 9 away, making this point 7 our midpoint. Now there's a way to do this a whole lot faster and will be way more handy, and that's actually by using average. Midpoint is basically the distance version of average. So if I were to take these two numbers, 16 and -2, add them together and divide by 2, what do we get? Well, 16 plus -2 is 14, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So you can see that you can actually find the average in order to find what your midpoint is. And let's use that idea here to get a little bit more complicated. Because if I'm looking at 2 points on a graph, unfortunately I don't have only one number to keep in mind. What I want to do is find what is its exact midpoint between this -2, 1 and 4, 3. So in order to keep more in mind, what I'm going to look at is what is going on with this segment. Well, all that's really happening is that you're moving upwards and over rather than in just one direction. So first I'm going up to that 3, and second I'm moving over to that 4. So this just means that I need to find, rather than halfway between this and this, if I could find what is halfway between these two and what is halfway between this horizontal distance, I'll be able to solve it in the same way. So instead of going up 2 units, I'm only going to go up 1. And instead of going over 6 units, I'm only going to go over 3. And that gives me this point here. So I'm going up and over half the distance that I would normally, getting me to the point 1, 2. Now this is just giving us the distance between these two coordinates. First, the y component that we have here, and second, the horizontal component or x component over here. Which means that if I wanted to find this using algebra, I can use the idea that we had above to find the midpoint between my x values and the midpoint between my y. So let's start with x. If I went from -2 to 4, I can do -2 plus 4 divided by 2. And if I wanted to find my vertical component, or how much I went up, I'm just going to take my y values that show me where I was. I was at 1, I ended up at 3, so I'm going to do 1 plus 3 divided by 2. Now, I should check that this matches up. -2 plus 4 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So that's good. I got the correct x. And for my y component, 1 plus 3 is 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I did find the correct answer here at 1, 2. And that actually gives me my midpoint formula. All you're doing is you're taking your x values, adding them together, and dividing by 2. And then you're taking your y values, adding them together, and dividing by 2. So that's going to be your midpoint each time. And please note, it won't matter which one you pick as x1 and x2. Since it's addition, you can add in any order you want. I could have done 4 plus a -2 or -2 plus 4. And do note that this takes basically 2 steps for solving. It's almost like you're doing 2 mini problems to get the full answer. So let's use this formula real quick by finding the midpoint of a line segment connecting 3, 4, and 16, 2. Rather than graphing, all I need to do is fill in my formula. I know that this is x and y, and let's just call this one 1, and x and y, let's call this one 2. So that means when I'm filling this in, I've got x1, or 3, plus x2, 16 over 2. And for my y, I have my y1, 4, plus my y2, 2 over 2. So this is going to give me 3 plus 16, which is 19, and 19 divided by 2 gives me an answer of 9.5. And for my y value, I'm going to do 4 plus 2, which is 6, divided by 2, which is 3. So my final answer is 9.5 and 3. Of course, you can also use the midpoint formula to find other information. So let's look at this final one then, and in this one we're asked if M is the midpoint of AB and A is this point, the midpoint is 4, 7, what are the coordinates of B? So I have something here, and I'm just going to draw any random line. Like, keep in mind that this is not necessarily what my line looks like on the graph. And I'm going to end up with a midpoint somewhere around here. So if this is AB, and I know that A is -6, 3. I know that my midpoint, M, is 4, 7. I want to find B. Now notice how usually I've been using x1 and y1, so why not just label B x1 or x2, y2. And that way it will fit into my formula the way I'm used to seeing. I'm just going to label it as a coordinate. Well, I know that in my formula, the midpoint is going to be equal to x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. Now, when I fill this in, I know what my midpoint is. It's 4, 7. And I know what my x1 and y1 are. They're negative 6 and 3 for y1. Now, when I'm solving this, you've got to keep in mind that we basically have those two equations. So a lot of times what I actually like to do is I like to move my midpoint down below, so I end up with the 4 and the 7 next to what they match with. This is talking about the x's, this is talking about the y's. So I know that when I punched this in, or plugged this in, I ended up with an answer of 4. And when I plugged this one in, I ended up with an answer of 7. So I can move down and just solve these one by one. This is saying that negative 6 plus x2 divided by 2 is equal to 4. If I multiply both sides by 2, I get negative 6 plus x2 is equal to 8. And if I add 6 to both sides, I have my x2 coordinate, which is 14. And over here, I can do the same thing. I know that this is saying 3 plus y2 over 2 is equal to 7. If I multiply both sides by 2, that makes that 7 14. So I've got 3 plus y is equal to 14. Subtract 3 from both sides, and I end up with y is equal to 11, which means that I actually have my final answer right there. I was almost expecting another step. So I have my y2 is equal to 11, and that means that I have my second coordinate b. My second coordinate b is 14, 11. Can I check this? Definitely. In fact, I'm going to do that really quick. Why not just put this in with my original point, negative 6, 3, just to make sure that I'm actually getting 4, 7 as an answer. Well, negative 6 plus 14 divided by 2 is supposed to give us an answer of 4. So let's just quick plug that in. You can actually do this in your head, but yep, sure enough, it does give me an answer of 4. And let's do that with the second one. 3 plus 11 is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and that is correct. It should be 7. So we've done this one correct. Don't forget that formulas can be used in a lot of different ways, and in this one, if you line them up, it will be a lot easier. That's it for today. You don't have any homework with midpoints. We'll get to that tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great day.